You mark your days. One of these days, we're going to come out of that, and I'm going to just be wearing a massive sombrero. I'm going to make it happen.
I thought you were going to say your shirt was going to be off.
I mean, you'll have to go over to a different channel to see that one. Let's get some music going, and then let's get started getting some shipped done. Actually, I want to do a different music. Let's do this one. Let's do the theme song. No, this one. We'll do this one. All right.
It sounds pretty similar. So where we're at, so we went over the idea for this AutoGen team of developers, and
lower down. There we go.
Yeah, little out. And so my goal was during the time that we met, I was going to get it set up, and guess what? I did not get it set up.
Funny enough, this is exactly my problem. I have all of these great things that I'd love to do between meetings, and I was feeling guilty that I never got things done between meetings. And then I just decided to be okay with it and be like, all right, I just need to expect that I'm going to get things done in meetings. And that's why we're doing this. And I'm glad that it could be of service to you too, right?
Yeah. And, like I was thinking, like, this could be really, really pivotal. That's a new word. I like it. Pivotal. Like this is a big deal. Like what we're working on, right. Trying to do it very this is a big 12-week rock.
Right.
And like my teammates are currently busy with other stuff. They're at capacity.
Right.
This is something that's really more of my superpower. Like, it would be really hard to hire someone that already gets this. This is like part of my superpower to even envision this, right? Like, I talked to AI about it, and they're just like, that's going to be kind of complicated. I'm like, I know.
Right.
And I'm pretty techy, so I'm going to be doing some of the tech stuff.
Right.
But like, if I was going to hire someone to do this, first of all, it'd be really hard to find someone that could.
Right.
And then the back and forth, like, be lucky if it got done in 12 weeks.
Right.
I'm not going to do it myself. This is when we're done with this, it's either going to be a learning experience or like really, really pivotal going forward.
Right.
And I would not get it complete without me and you doing this together. Like, I would get it halfway started, or if I hired someone, it would get halfway started. Eventually they'd have a question. I would not get back to them, maybe for 3 weeks. By then they've moved on. Right. It wouldn't get done, or it would just, I'd have to, it would take the same amount of time and just tens of thousands of dollars if I hired someone else. Right.
Yeah. And man, it's such an interesting thing. Like there's power in like hiring the personal trainer, or hiring the sales coach, or hiring that person, right? Like there's power in the person that literally, like, they're not necessarily always bringing something new to the table of, like, some secret knowledge, right? Like, it's not always that. Sometimes it's literally just helping you to take action on what you already know that you need to do, but it's hard to do it on your own, right? It's hard to be motivated to do it on your own. And, hopefully I bring to the table not just that, but also some things that people might consider a little bit more the secret knowledge, right? A little bit more the, tricks that make it easier, quicker, all of that. But really, like, the foundational value of saying, like, hey, we hop on, we do the work, and we get it done. Like,
right.
That by itself is powerful. And then, the unique mix of, like, I can't help but be fascinated with this AI stuff. So I figured out some tricks that make this process a lot more complete in the time in the time that we work together. It may not be as quick as other people do things, but what I do in that time is drastically more complete than other alternatives.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so I'm wondering if thinking through this, like, I wonder if I can open up this AutoGen project in Cursor, or we import it into Claude to like actually let Claude kind of guide us on setting up this AutoGen.
Yeah, I mean, I would. Claude's potentially a good option for this. They just recently added the search capability. So yeah, I would do that. I would say, here's what I would do. So in Claude, I'd start a new project, and the project, I would give it a name. I would call it AutoGen AI, AutoGen Agentic Dev Team. Okay, and then over time, we'll potentially add more documents, more context, more stuff to the project database. I don't think we need to change instructions yet. I don't think we need to do anything with that. But if we do that, now we have like a place where we're housing this. And the first thread that I would start with is I would say, hey, here's my goal. I'm looking to build, an agentic dev team using AutoGen. Walk me through how to do that step by step, to get started and get this ready for me to be able to build this out. Help me think about what I need to think about, answer the questions, and walk me through it step by step. Does that feel right for what you're thinking?
Yeah, I think so. So I'm going to share my screen, and I can do this. This will be fun. And now, normally, when you work with a client, you're actually doing this typing stuff for them. But I'm a nerd too. I'm going to let you eat your burrito. And so we're going to do that. And so I'm going to create a new project. I'm going to call it AI Agentic Team. And I guess I should do this. You see my screen here?
I do see it. Yep. Let me close some of these so that I see your screen better. Let me make this full screen. There we go. And I would specify this to me.
Yeah.
I would rename this project slightly.
Okay.
This isn't just AI Agentic Team. This is an Agentic Dev Team, right? Because you could build an Agentic team to do customer service and to do project development and all of that. An Agentic team in this case is just the idea that we have multiple separate AI agents coming together to accomplish some style of task or work. And in this case, you're wanting to build out a dev team. You want them to do coding for you, right?
Yeah. All right. And so what do you want me to type here?
Yeah. So I'd define the goal. I'd say something like, I am working on setting up AutoGen to be able to build out an agentic dev team. My goal is to build out an agentic workflow, an agentic process.
Oh, you know what? I've actually already got this somewhere.
Perfect.
So let me find it. I've got this cool little search tool up here that hopefully lets me look through all of my AI.
What's that tool called again?
What is it called? It is Echo's Chat GPT.
Echo's Chat GPT. Perfect. And that one's an extension. So if people want to be able to search through all their different chats across all their different AI services, you're able to search through them that way.
Yeah, so I've got a couple potential chats. I'm going to open up both of them to see which one I've got that's best. It spelled it AutoGen, but it knew AutoGen. Yeah, so let's see. This is a specific, this is kind of like one of my little magic tricks I've been using lately,
Right.
where I tell them to help me create a specific prompt and then I give them that information.
Right.
And so
I've heard that some models you can apply the same idea, but I've heard that instead of doing it in that format, which would be more like HTML, have it give it to you in JSON. And I've heard that the LLMs really do well with understanding the context in a JSON format.
So Claude documentation and specifically recommends XML.
Oh, does
it? Yeah. So that's why I'm doing that. And
that makes sense.
So I've actually got a project, which is kind of cool. I don't know, have I showed you my Brian Romel prompt creator?
I don't think so.
I've got a project where I took all of Claude's documentation on how to make great prompts, and I uploaded it with Brian Romel's information.
Gotcha.
And so that's my prompt creator. And so I ended up like going through really deeply on a bunch of different ideas. So my goal, I'll tell you what my goal is. So my goal is to be able to make progress in 2 hours, 1 to 2 hours a day, and let the AI really go with it. So I've got. So
we could potentially work through that and see what ideas or constraints that brings up. Like that's your goal, right? Like that's your stated goal.
Yeah.
But thinking through the reality of that, that's more how you know when it's working. For your AI agents to do this well, I think part of what you're going to need to define is you might need to define this in a way that they have more clarity on it, right? For like Claude to be able to help you, you might need to be able to say, I know that it's working when I'm able to make meaningful progress in 2 hours or less. But what is meaningful progress, right? What does that look like? Right. How is that defined, right? Where it's where it like last time we talked about potentially this cycle of like of parts of the process that need to be shipped for the feature to move forward, for it to be live, right? So like I've got to be able to successfully pull an API on this. I've got to be able to successfully get that API data into the database. I've got it like those things, and it's like each sub-step of that is something that you could break out the project in those ways, and then you want to have an iterative cycle where the system learns from itself after it's successfully done something. So all that is to say, you'll know the end result is correct when you're seeing features completed, or you're able to track the specific progress along the path to shipping the end result. And you're completing more of those per hour than you normally would, like working alone, right? Or whatever, right? So like that's how you know that. And then the cycle that you want it to go through is a combination of like stated immediate goal, process to try and achieve that immediate goal. Let me think about this. So we've got the overarching goal, we've got the sub steps to accomplish that. We've got to tackle each sub step, and then we've got we've got to have an iterative flow of sub step sub-step idea, like how are we going to tackle this thing? Initial coding around doing that thing, test and verification that it's working successfully, potentially a sub-step of test and verify that it's not a breaking change amongst the entire code base. And then when those steps have been done, then clearly document what the feature is, how it works, get that into the documentation, and then potentially push a commit, right?
Right.
And so and then you just run that cycle through all the features. And so then if you've got like a major milestone, defining out the sub steps. So I think does that make, I don't know how to describe why intuitively I know that that's different than telling AI I want to get this done in 2 hours. I think like you have to have a logical flow where you say, what specifically do I want it to do? What's my vision for how this gets accomplished? Because it's gonna be a lot more likely to successfully give you that if you could define what is the working theory of how to accomplish that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I've done a lot of work on kind of there's Project Takeoff. I think I told you about it. He actually does pretty good at kind of laying out some of this.
Right.
And so I've done some of this pretty well. If we can log in here. All right, well, Bitwarden's not going to work.
Bitwarden's crapping out on you?
It is. In my Brave browser. But I can show, let's see. I mean, I've done a lot of prompting here. So I think this is what he says start out with. Give a project description, desired features. This might actually not be, so this actually isn't number one. Let's see if this is number one. This might be, let's see. If I can log in, it'll make more sense. I'm pulling all this over here. And I was using Grok because of the context window. And let's see. This is where too, like I can get really lost in all these different, I went really deep for a while and then, I got distracted, didn't get things finished. So now I am, trying to piece all this together. And
so let's step back for a second. Let's think about this. One of the things that I really like to do is I like to define the way that you are going to show up and work matters for everything else, right? Like the way that, let's wave the magic wand. What does your process look like, right? Because we're acknowledging we're acknowledging the reality of AI right now left to its own devices will generate generic slop, right? It'll generate hot garbage. And so you're going to be involved in this process in some way. What do you envision is your ideal way that you interact with this system? Are you speaking to it? Are you brain dumping ideas? What do you envision that process might look like in an ideal scenario?
So ideal scenario, I really treat them like my last developer. We worked really well with each other.
Okay.
Which was I had pretty good documentation.
Okay.
I had old code that I could show him.
Right.
I did Loom videos, walking him through, talking him through everything.
Okay.
And then I would say, hey, give me do you understand this? He would say yes. I was like, all right, give me your plan. Tell me back how you would do it, and give me your constraints, what the issues would be, and then he would work on that and say, all right, here's my plan. Here's where I think we'll have issues, and I would talk through them, and I would either say, all right, let's do it your way, or I'd say, no, we can do it my way, and here's how. And then he'd start working on it. And when he ran into an issue, each day I would say, hey, do you have any issues? Are you running into any bottlenecks? And he might say, no, everything's good. He might say, yeah, I've got one bottleneck, but I'm working on it. If he'd been stuck on that bottleneck for 2 or 3 days, I would say, hey, let's hop on a Zoom call and let's solve this together. And so one of them that we had was using N8N with Dropbox. We were trying to do something and it just wasn't working. And we had to hop on a Zoom call for 3 or 4 hours. And we had to reverse engineer N8N. And there was this header that was missing that was not documented. And then we solved that. All right, move to the next step. And so that worked really well. I explained at a high level. I said, tell me what your, do you understand this? Show me what your idea is. We'd go back and forth on the idea, choose one. He'd start working on it. When he ran into issues, we'd brainstorm, solve it, keep working on it. And so that worked really well.
Okay. So here are the steps of this process that I'm hearing. So first off, you have documentation around the way things already work, right? So you're not typically starting from scratch around this. It's coming into an ecosystem that already exists. Your way of conveying a project was to record a Loom video explaining the process. In this, I don't know. Keep this in the back of your mind. Gemini 2.5 might be the perfect fit for you to be able to show up in the way that you're used to. Because one of the things that we're seeing with Gemini 2.5 is that it is able to actually understand the video and not just the transcript.
Okay.
So if you can get that in there, you might be able to show up in the way that you're already used to. Matthew Berman pointed that out, where he was like the token context of him uploading one of his videos was 232,000 tokens, and that wasn't the transcript, that was the video. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that might be part of what we need to think about from this long term. The shorter, quicker way to be able to do something approximating that would be being able to get transcripts from your videos. So you still do a Loom. You treat it like you're talking to a developer. And honestly, this is something that I found helpful. I have found it helpful to treat them like a person. That it puts something in my brain that the way that I show up isn't like I'm trying to program an AI, but the way I show up is I show up a way that I don't have to think about as much. So, and one of the things that I found helpful for that is to give them a name. Do you have any ideas in mind for what you might name your lead dev, right? Your point of contact in this process?
What about a strong Hungarian name? What about Arcos?
Arcos?
Yeah,
Spell it for me.
Arkos.
Arcos. Perfect. So our lead dev, his name is Arcos. So let's think about it this way, and let's think about that. Like, part of what works well for you is you will imagine yourself talking to Arcos, right? Arcos might have a team of people that are doing sub steps for him, but you are envisioning, hey, when I'm working with this system, I am talking to Arcos. Okay. And so you'll do it in the same way. You'll show up recording Loom videos, giving instructions, giving project level stuff like that. We probably need Arcos. So one of the things that I heard that's a potential thing to understand. I have learned, do you understand, is a bad question. And the reason why is because everybody says yes and we learn nothing. What's a better question? What's a better question is, explain to me what you understand, or explain to me what you're understanding about this project or about the next steps. And some of these next questions that you had, I think, are perfect questions for what you're really looking for, which is, based on this information, tell me what your plan is. And you might have it respond with, based on this, respond with what you understand the project to be, what the goal of this would be, your plan to execute on it, and any constraints or difficulties that you envision in the process of executing this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then you want to step at that point where they come back to you and they explain these things, and you want a human in the loop process here. You don't want to drop a video, and you don't want them to just go off and do it. You want them to check for understanding first and get your confirmation of, yes, this is the plan that we're going to do to move forward. Or you have an expectation that if the plan that they come back with, if you look at it and you're like, I don't agree with this, I think this is a bad way to do it, I think this is dumb, and here's why, then you want to work with them until you're on the same page for executing the plan, right? And then they go out, they execute the plan, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so part of what I see in this process, you're not likely looking at 2 to 3 days of letting them go off and do this. You are more likely going to be looking at iterative cycles of waiting. I don't know how long it'll take some of the process to happen here, but you're probably looking at closer to 5 to 10, sometimes longer, depending on how complex something might be, where you're waiting for the in-between. But your expectation would be that you want them to go out and execute on something using whatever our execution flow is, but you're expecting that during this 2-hour sequence, you're going to, when they run into a bottleneck, we want to have a better definition for that, of how long do they try and solve it before they come to you for guidance, right?
Right.
And so what I would probably do is I would probably define that of, I would code into this like a 1-3-1, right? Like that sort of concept where you have them, if they're running into an obstacle, they themselves give them, the AI agent comes up with 3 potential solutions, executes on one of them, and then tests to see if it worked, right? And
yeah.
And then you only, you don't want it to do that infinitely. You want it to loop probably at most, operating on its own. How many times would you want AI to try and solve its own problem before it comes to you?
In the beginning, I would be okay with, let's say 3.
And that's what my gut was saying too. So I would say I would say you have it run the 1-3-1 process 3 times. And if it still isn't solved, it knows that it needs to come back to you and say, you know, here's the goal. Here's what we're trying to solve. Here's the obstacle I'm running into. Here's what I've tried and what I'm running into. And, you know, now I'm needing help to get unblocked. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. So I want him to come back with what information?
So
goal?
You want him to come back with the goal of what they're working on, the problem that they've ran into, the solutions they've tried, the outcome of what they've tried, and honestly, what I would still potentially have them do is, I would still have them potentially give you 3 potential solutions to try next, but they don't execute on them this time, right? They run the 1-3-1 themselves the first 3 times, but then they get to that 3rd time where it's not working. They come to you, but they still come to you armed with potential solutions. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
I
think I would want to, I don't know if there's I want them to tell me, like, what is the bottleneck? Like, what's the reason for the bottleneck? Like, which I guess is kind of, you know, like what
that's at least what I'm trying to get at with the goal and the problem that they ran into, right? It's like, here's what I'm trying to do, and here's the maybe change problem into bottleneck. What's stopping me from moving forward, or what's making me be unable to progress, or what's the expected outcome, and like why am I not able to move forward?
Yeah.
And then from there, you have an expected human in the loop where, like, you at this point, you either tell them, yeah, go ahead and try and execute on that solution. You could give it another 3 attempts before coming back to me. Right?
Yeah.
Or you could say, I think we're going down the wrong path. Go down this path instead. And try it that way. Right? Or
yeah.
So, like, these are potential outcomes. I would write this down, by the way. Like, this is like this is like what your end of this would be, right? So,
all right. So say this again.
Yep. So like this is now your job in this process, right? Like what your work looks like. So for Charlie responds with either proceed with you know, your solution that like the AI, because the AI is going to come with you with solutions, right? If you're like, yeah, I think that's right. Proceed with trying to do that. Go ahead and go back into you know, a 3 attempt 1-3-1 loop and try and solve it yourself. So that's one potential solution. Another potential solution is that you tell it, no, I think you're going down the wrong path. Here's a different direction, and start a 1-3-1 loop around this direction. Okay. And then the third option is that you don't even have that clarity, and you actually need to, like, try and solve the problem yourself before you come back to it. Right? So you go to work digging into APIs, doing research, doing whatever you need to, and you might still be working, like, maybe with a separate, you know, AI agent or something to do the research, but, like,
all right.
I found that there's times for me where it's like it's banging my head against the wall to keep working in this thread with this agent. I need to go and just try and get clarity for myself about what this might be, and research my own options in order to get them to move forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So proceed. I think you're doing the wrong path. Do this instead. I ask questions. I go research the issue. Yeah. Yeah. And I would say, like, in that one, to me, for sake of how these work, I would say that's almost likely like a like I wouldn't expect them to be able to do that well. So I would expect that you need to talk to somebody else, right? Like if you're going to be working with another AI agent, the agent's not going to be able to help you get unblocked. Like, it's a separate frame, and you almost need a different agent if you're going to be working with an agent to research things and do something like that. So it's like you almost need like your research and problem solving agent. Does that make sense? That you
go to. So possibly I could this is Cursor. I could start a new chat within Cursor.
Right.
But like I need to break out of the context, right?
I think so. Like most typically, that's what I would try at that point. Is I would try to exit to a different solution. I'd either go into a new thread where I'm very specifically, some other agent that's equipped with helping me research, helping me come up with solutions, that sort of idea, so that like I don't have to come up with the solutions myself, but I'm not in the context of this broken chain of thought that has been going on, right? I kind of want to come in armed with, we're going to do this completely new. Here's the new path that I want you to go down. So it's almost like a sub-step to, I think you're doing the wrong path, do this instead. That's more like if you have clarity of the idea, then do this instead. This is more of the alternate to that of, I think you're doing it wrong, but I don't have clarity of what the path is. Here's my process for how I get clarity.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, and so then the outcomes from that, either it went out and it solved the problem, right? And so then the bottleneck was busted through just by giving it more rounds of iteration. If it implements your potential solution and that solves it, great. Then you move forward there. If it implements the new solution that you had to research and you come back to it. So that's the other thing too, is whatever you go off to that research step, what you probably need to do is pretty clearly define, maybe list this out. Here's where I think you're wrong, or where I think like you're going down a bad path. Here's the alternate.
This one?
Yeah, like, so I define very specifically. Here specifically is what I think you're doing wrong. Here is my proposed alternate solution that I think you should do instead, and why I think it'll work well for us, right? Like, I'd answer those questions. And that's probably what you need to give it for either that one or the second one, right? Like, you need to get those questions answered, even if you're working in another thread, in order to come back to it armed with that information to have it move forward in a different direction. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so like that's kind of the outcome of what you're looking for. If you're going to go out and research, your goal is to answer those questions of like, here's where I think you're going wrong, and here's what I want you to do instead and why. If you have clarity around that already and you don't need to do research, then you just provided that information. But yeah, so then we essentially have a couple outcomes here of the first round. So it came back to us with an issue. It either was just a step or two away from solving it itself, and that's kind of that first option, proceed with your solution, and it solves it. The other outcome is that you think it's on the completely wrong path, and you either have clarity or you don't. So those are binary options there. If you have clarity, you just give it the clarity. If you don't have clarity, you go and get clarity, right? But either way, your goal is to be able to answer those questions. Here's specifically what I think you're doing wrong. Here's my proposed solution and why it'll work, okay? And so then it goes back, and again, it either solves it or it doesn't, right? It's either
right.
able to accomplish its bottleneck or it's not. If it is, then you've completed this portion of the looping cycle, and the outcome should be your overall looping cycle is try to solve it, see if you've got early signs of success, test for success, test for like system breaking changes, right? So maybe it's working in this, but it's breaking something else. And then once those have been validated, then add to the documentation, add to the documentation and push a commit, right?
Yeah.
And once you've completed, go ahead.
can I show you? I finally found the join takeoff. Uh, what his prompts are
Right.
is first the request, which
Okay.
I've got here.
Right.
Like, hey, this is the project, and it responded with, this specific thing.
Right.
And oh, never do a live demo. Oh, let's see. And then from there, create the specs for it. And then from there, create like the plan for it. And then from there, this is where you actually have the code gen for one part at a time.
Right.
And I thought the prompt might be in here. And kind of go through the code gen one at a time. And then of course, once it's done, then it's, you review it. And so that's his, 1, 2, 3. This is the part that's, the project planner at the beginning. And then for the code gen, this is, you generate it, you apply it, you review it, and then you commit it.
So
that's
generate, apply, and review. Okay, perfect. So something that's missing from this that you need in your step, in your processes, is that isn't accounting for, as far as I could tell. I mean, we haven't looked through the prompts. It's not accounting for, we had a successful completion. We need to generate documentation off of that completion and get it back into our documentation so that our system learns from itself over time. And each iteration is more and more informed. Yeah,
let's see. So here's the actual prompts. I guess just realized I could actually just go here. So here is the brainstorming prompt, which I showed you.
Okay.
This is how it breaks it down. The next is, this is, generate the specs for it. I include the request. Any specific rules, breaks that down. Then you got the planner prompt, which is, create an actual step-by-step plan.
Go back up. Okay, project request, project rules, technical specification, starter template. I don't know what some of these are, so it's hard for me to wrap my head around them.
Gotcha. So project request, that's what we generated up here at number 1.
Okay, go back up to that then. What is that?
That is...
So it includes the name of the project, a description of the project, the target audience, the desired features, requirement, sub-requirement, feature, category. Okay, scroll down. Ask me questions, help me organize requirements logically, show me the current state of the spec after each exchange, flag any potential technical challenges or important decisions. Okay.
Yeah. And so I've got that answer. I think this is it. Yeah. So I did that.
Go back up. I want to read this. I need to understand this if I'm going to be able to step in and think through it as if I'm with you. Act as an expert at programming with plain PHP. Dropbox. Okay. So we got like, they're an expert programmer. They know all of these things. Task to develop code for the task requested. Okay. Ask if this needs to be simple or part of a larger project. Do not write any code first. Let's think through the problem first. Do not guess. Ask me for clarifications or any files. Okay. Goal: create great PHP programs to solve tasks. Okay. Scroll down. Format.
That
Cloud artifact that can be shared, copy, and pasted. Okay. Reasoning: we often have tasks that can be solved with programming. Sometimes the tasks are part of the project we're already developing and need to work on it. It's dependencies. Sometimes the task can be simple one-file solutions. Go down. Project done for you. Marketing for entrepreneurs. How we get media content they upload. Okay. How we get static content. They upload photos. How we get information from them. Okay. What we do at onboarding: create specific AI prompts for them to give for later use. This is a prompt that tells all about brand templates. Okay, what we do with social media content. We create SEO optimized title and summary based on podcast and business school workbook episodes through here. Create short clips. We send the transcripts to AI. We do this. Okay, keep going. We do with static content. We create posts with photo. Okay, keep going. We do all this through posting ads through APIs, preferably AirShare. I would like to be able to change them out in case whenever bans us. One large contact list. They can sync multiple address books with us. We sync with Google Contacts, iCloud Contacts, Outlook Contacts. We connect to other CRMs through their API. Okay, keep going. The future. I want to be able to send emails, text these people. Your project. Do not create a solution yet. Ask for more. Okay, so and tell me, define for me what the goal of that portion was. Define, like, tell me in your mind what the goal of that initial project is designed to accomplish in your overall process.
Yeah. So the goal is to get to a place where I have a really good description of what we're doing. The overall view. Like this is, pretty high idea of what we're doing, so that
perfect.
I can so that I can then bring it to the spec prompt.
Okay, and tell me more about the spec prompt. So what's that mean?
Yeah. So the spec prompt
in terms of goal, like what's the outcome of the goal?
Yeah. The goal is to actually, this is it. Provide a step-by-step breakdown of each thing that needs to be happening. List potential challenges, like thinking through, break down complex into step-by-step flows. They are acting as a software architect. So this is to create like the detailed spec. The other was here's the features, the goals, the requirements. This one is, all right, like tell me exactly what I need. And so what I did is I pasted what I just showed you here.
Okay. So what is a spec? It's not a term that I'm familiar with. So what I understand from the first one is that the first one is all of our project-wide context, right? Like here's what referrals while you sleep is, and an understanding of what we're built on, how it works, what we're doing, what we're delivering, all of that. Like some of our longer term visions, some of our longer term goals. Like it's a document that cohesively contains the overarching idea. What's the difference between that and the spec? I mean, so
the spec is the technical rules. So okay. For example, here's how the controllers and models and resources should work. Nerdy stuff, define the models as core entities. Here's how we're going to handle user management, content workflow. Here's the actual tables that we're going to use for the database.
Okay.
Here's the steps that we're going to do it. Efficient indexing for large contact lists. Like that's true. Like we need that. We use that currently. Clarifications on contacts shared or per user. Like how are we going to access the different databases?
Okay. So this documentation is the technical specifications for the code base.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so that makes sense. So it's all of the needed information around. If we know that the project documentation is kind of our overall goals and the high level ways that we think about this documentation here is the specifics around the technical ways that stuff's being done in this code base, and it's a map to where things are. It's the legend of how to read the map. It's that. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. And so I answered all that, and then, so I've got that. So that's step 2.
Okay.
And then step 3 is the planner prompt.
Okay.
This is where you're an AI task manager, and you need to break down all this complex application into manageable steps.
Right.
So here's the project request. Here's the rules. Here's the technical specs, which included the starter template.
So we developed the project request in that first prompt. Where is the specs prompt in here in this one?
So the spec prompt will go here.
Okay. What about the project rules? When are those developed? Because we haven't covered that.
That was in with the project request. So,
okay.
So that was combined there, kind of with the starter template. I mentioned Laravel and that. So, and in fact, I included that. If we show that starter template, actually, I created that separately. Here's the starter template. Use something called repo mix to generate. Hey, this is what all the files and folders look like. Starter template here with my XML. Here's the project rules. Actually, I got these separately, remembering now. So I've got project rules for Prettier, ESLint, how TypeScript. So this is like how Tailwind, how the program should be written, and these will end up going in. This was for Cursor. This would be for Cursor to know, if it's a PHP file, use this. If it's et cetera, et cetera. So that's where all that is.
So that makes sense. Tell me a little bit more about the starter template, because that's when I hear starter template, this is not what I would have expected to see. So tell me more about what this is designed to do.
Yeah, so this is a program starter template. This is the Laravel. This is the Laravel layout. How things get programmed. So looking real nerdy. We've got the controllers. This is how all the authentication works.
Gotcha. Okay, so this is documenting Laravel as a PHP system. This is all of the baseline structure of Laravel, essentially. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, front end and back end. So here's the front end using Vue.
That makes sense. So this is all of like, before you've made it your own, this is what the project starts with, regardless, where it's like the core functionality of the system we're building off of itself. Is that right?
Right. That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. I at least get what that is, and I never would have known that that's called the starter template. Is that a pretty consistent naming scheme for that? Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. You can look for Laravel starter template, or you can look for modern SaaS starter template, and that'll it won't be Laravel. Laravel's here's one with Svelte.
Gotcha.
So yeah,
that makes sense. So it's and like I've done a little bit of theme development for Ghost. So like there are starter templates for the themes for Ghost, and there's similar baseline structure to them. It's not nearly as complex, but there's similar baseline structure to them. Is that kind of the idea that you're talking about?
100%. That way, I mean, all of this is pretty common. So instead of us having to build all this out, we start with we're going to need all of these files. So
makes sense. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah. Okay. And then for the next step, which is where we're at the planner prompt. So we've got all of that. Here is where, and this is where the code starts kind of happening. We go over here. I think this is where it's at. let's see, is that the one? AI task planner. Yeah. So I give it all of this stuff. So, this is the first thing we generated. This is the project rules.
Right.
I actually made the project rules better. I added some more stuff.
Right.
Very detailed there. And I was using Grok because at Grok, at that point, they were the only one that had like 1 million token workflow.
Right. Right.
Here's all the specs. Here's the starter template layout. And now say, after reviewing all that, do all this. And so it's brainstorming. And here's the implementation plan. Start, step by step. Start, just setting up everything here.
Create database migrations. Define eloquent models. Okay.
Handle the authentication.
Step dependencies, user instructions. Okay. And so explain this one to me. So I'm so far we've generated the overall project context. We've generated the project rules, which is essentially like here's how we do things. Here's the technical specifications of the files. They're done this way. We use this code system. We put them here in these ways, right? Like we have rules that way. We have our technical specifications, which seems related to that to me, but it's here's the structure of things. Here's what we're coding in. Here's kind of how we think about accomplishing the different things. So like all of this so far is context. Is this right now the outcome of the planner one?
Yeah. This is the no. So yes, this is the outcome of the planner. This is the planner, basically creating a waterfall plan. This is step 7.
What do you mean when you say create a waterfall plan? What do you mean when you say that?
Or a Gantt chart. Like this is not laid out as a Gantt chart, but you can think of it as a Gantt chart. Like, this one is dependent on step 2.
Right. Perfect.
And the idea is, and like, this has actually changed a little bit. So probably need to update this. The dashboard's really number 1 now.
Right.
But then the goal is we would take one of these, let's say it's step 7. And we include everything else, project requests, project roles, all of that, the current code, and then say, actually, we would just include all of this and say, find the next incomplete, return the generated code, return it in this way. Basically as an XML diff. Document it. Here's the guidelines. And then there is this cool little, I wonder if I can, if this repo prompt, it might not be needed now, but the repo prompt actually lets me import this. Like this is going to be set up as an XML.
Right.
Get diff.
Okay.
And so I can literally paste that in here, hit apply, and it applies it applies it to the repo for me. So it can be, it can be a get diff of 12 different file changes. I paste that whole thing in here and it applies them all at once.
Okay. Gotcha.
With the documentation, everything, of course. Then I test it, and then I would go into Cursor and say, git apply all of these with the correct So then you apply it. So
Right.
that's it. Here's the. This is actually the XML changes because he had two versions. This was kind of new. Here's how the XML diff works, which is pretty cool to see. And then once that's done, I haven't really gotten here yet. But then here's the
Go
review.
up real quick. Yeah. What is it looking to achieve? So first, review implementation included steps against the original plan, identify opportunities to improve the folder file organization, look for components that could be better composed or hierarchically organized, find opportunities for code modularization, consider separation of concerns, code quality and best practices, look for TypeScript React anti-patterns, identify areas needing improved type safety, find places needing better error handling, look for opportunities to improve code reuse, review naming conventions, scroll down, review UI components against requirements, look for accessibility issues, identify components, composition, review responsive design implementation, check error message handling, wrap your analysis in analysis tags, and then create a detailed optimization plan using the following format. Okay, for each step in your plan, focus on specific concrete improvements, keep changes manageable, no more than 20 files per step, ideally less. Ensure steps build logically on each other, preserve starter template code and patterns, maintain existing functionality, follow project rules, technical specifications. Your plan should be detailed enough for code generation AI to implement each step in a single iteration. Okay, remember, focus on implemented code, not starter template code. Clear success criteria for each step. Okay, so this one is specifically an improvement prompt, right? Like this one. So yeah, we got our first one back. This one is designed to improve what we got.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
And that's it. That's the join takeoff. That's his plan there.
Okay. And so what question? Yeah. What question? So I feel like I understand this. It's still missing some things that I think ideally you would have.
What is missing?
There isn't anywhere in there where AI is testing these for you.
Yeah.
Right? So in terms of agents, you in that process, you don't have something where AI is able to test it. You would be running the tests.
Yeah.
And that might be okay, but I like if like our long-term goal on this would be like it likely doesn't need to be you running the tests, right? Like you could have AI execute the test and see if there are errors generated. Maybe like something that designs a test and looks for how do we define that we got a successful outcome. Runs the test for successful outcome, and then if if it's successful, then you probably want a step where you validate, where it's like where it says it did it successfully, but you probably, I don't know how to describe this. You do still probably want to test it to actually verify that it did what it said it did, but you want it to be able to do the initial test. You don't want to be the minesweeper. You want to be the person that comes through after the mines have already been swept through, right? You want to verify, was it done right after somebody else has potentially lost a limb, right? To save you time and effort, right? But ultimately, you will need to do like kind of a final pass, final sweep to verify, yes, this works as expected. But you're typically you would expect that most often it will be done right?
Right.
And it's
so I need to get them to write the test, which I don't know if that was in any of that. So yeah, they do have testing, but they've got testing at the end, and really the test Like I want the testing to be.
You need to test each and every step, right? Like
Right.
my thinking, if you want this to be successful, is you don't want this thing to go through. You don't want this thing to go through and build out all of this stuff and then wait to the end to figure out that all of it was wrong and a waste of time. You want it each step to be able to have a step of testing. Did the work that I just did it accomplish what I was looking for, and how can I test that?
Yeah, and so that's actually, it's called test-driven development.
Yeah,
I think that's what I would want to do, where they actually write the test first, then write the code to pass the test and all of the previous tests,
right,
to make sure there are no side effects.
yeah, right.
Then AI runs the test.
Right.
Once that passes, then I run the test.
Yes. And then like the other part of the loop for that process. So this would be the next step. So you verify the test. If verified, only at that point is like, is recursive the right word? Where it goes back and it says, we completed this step. Here's the new documentation in our sort of growing documentation thing, right? And then like here are changes to our project documents. Here are changes to our rules, if there are any, right? And yeah, so like at that step, because you want to, like, that's closing the loop, right? Like yeah. we have our overarching project description, kind of our foundational goal. We have our technical specifications around our project, and then we have like our, you know, like our features or issues that we're looking to solve, right? So you know, each of the issues that we're working toward, and right, like, and some of these are going to be the more logical highest priority issues or whatever, right? But
yeah,
and some of them are bug squashing, some of them are feature, some of them are design, but we have our issues that we're tackling, and really, like, yeah, what's my point here? What's my point here? My point here is, like, you want AI to really you don't want it to go too far before it's validated that that the work that it did was actually a step forward, right?
Right. Yeah. So that's where you brought up. I mean, we really. And there probably needs to be some kind of verification that the tests are written correctly. Right. Like, I think.
So, and here's how I typically think about that. Is I always think, so this is a really good place where like how this works for humans really fits in here. Always separate your creator from your verifier, right? So in terms of AI agents, one agent's job is to write, potentially review its own stuff for errors, but then you want a separate one that its only job that it ever does is to check and verify for errors. Like that's its sole existence. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know, it's the butter robot from Rick and Morty. Its job is to move the butter from here to there.
Right.
But anyway, so yeah, so whenever there's a step like that, I always think about them separately. So yeah, so its job is to verify that the test seems good. Then you have like literally each of these I would probably have as like each one of these is a separate AI agent, where you have the AI agent whose job it is to write and maybe do like the cursory review of if it was a good a good test. Then you have the one who's like, its sole existence is to verify that there's good that it's a good test. Then you might separately have another agent whose job it is to run the test and check for the outcomes, right? Like your test executor, right? Then you would have another agent whose job it is to review the outcomes of the test, right? To say, was it successful or not, right? And then like out of that loop, then you have the actual, this test was like, we executed this properly, right? Does that make sense? For sake of the test-driven development, technically you might have some steps in between here from what I'm hearing from you, which is you have the, like, if we're thinking about this from the development cycle, so write the test, verify the test feels correct, okay? In between there, we actually have writing the code, verifying the code, then running the test with the code that was generated. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's what I feel like I'm hearing in terms of.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so then the yeah, exactly. So run all tests, modify based on outcomes for side effects, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
and then
really, depending on how long the tests work, maybe you just run that one test, or maybe you run them all, because depending on how long it takes, it might be worth it just you run all the tests to make sure that, might as well catch the side effects up front, right?
Yeah. I don't know if it matters. I think, so here's the way that I think about it. Don't think about this like a human. Think about it like AI, right? Like AI is almost always going to do a better job the smaller the size of the task that it's given. It is what I've found. So I would probably rather it validate that, hey, at least it was able to pass the test in this silo, like this one test, this one thing. So we know that this part is working. If there are breaking changes or side effects, that is a separate issue that yes, you want to catch, but like it's not, to me, it's not worth even trying to run it if just logically, just thinking through it sequentially, it has to pass its test before it matters whether there's whether there's side effects, right?
Yeah.
Because if there's side effects and you're not getting the result, you still need to first get it to the point of it's able to pass the test for the feature itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it still should consider the other test, or it might just go way off on its own. That
to me is part of the. That to me is also part of like that concept needs to be part of writing the test well. That needs to be part of verifying the test is correct. That all of those are operating from that standpoint as well, where it's like there's always an expectation of like a gut check of considering everything else, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
all right,
it might.
I have an appointment right meow.
All right. Well, did we get some shifts done?
I think so. This is. Do you feel like you've got a better idea?
Yes.
I do too.
Indeed.
And awesome. Well, I'm sure we'll probably talk in 30 minutes.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye.
Bye.